Welcome to video number 4 of the 2x2 table series in iPrep for Intro to Epidemiology. In this video, we will learn how to calculate and interpret odds ratios using data from 2x2 tables. The next set of calculations you'll be asked to do with your 2x2 tables is finding an odds ratio. An odds ratio is a comparison of the odds of getting an outcome between the exposed and unexposed groups, while risk ratio compared the risk. Odds is a ratio between the probability of having an outcome and the probability of not having an outcome. The formula is very similar, but as you can see, we're now ignoring the totals here, which means we are no longer using incidence rates in our calculations. Odds ratios tend to be most useful for small study groups that would not be representative of the general population. Using our flu example again, take a moment to pause the video and see if you can calculate the odds ratio. For the top part of the calculation here, we're looking at the exposed group, and we need cell A divided by cell B, and that all goes over our odds of the unexposed group, cell C divided by cell D. We plug this into a calculator, and you end up with 0.57. Now, what does an odds ratio of 0.57 mean? We report this like the way we learned to report risk ratios, except we replace the word risk with odds. So we'd say the exposed group has 0.57 times the odds of having the outcome as the unexposed group. Or in this case, those who got the flu shot had 0.57 times the odds of catching the flu as those without the shot. Now remember, this is referring to just the people in our sample population, and this data cannot be used to make generalizations about the entire population. Just like we learned with risk ratios, it's still important to avoid using words like more or less than in your interpretations because these can cause confusion. An odds ratio of more than 1 means there are greater odds of the exposure being associated with the outcome. An odds ratio of less than 1 means the odds of the exposure causing the outcome are inversely related. An odds ratio of 1 means there's no association between the two. Here are a few final notes on risk ratio versus odds ratio. Remember that you use a risk ratio when your study group is considered representative of the entire population, while using the odds ratio is useful if the study performed was not representative. In your Intro to Epi course, the problem you are given will usually specify which one to calculate, or even sometimes both, but it is good to understand this difference. To recap, in video 4, we learned how to calculate and interpret an odds ratio, reviewed some tips to keep interpretations clear, and went over an important distinction between using the odds ratio versus a risk ratio. Please continue to our 5th and final video in our 2x2 table section for an example that ties together all of the concepts you've learned so far.